You're listening to the Voice of Russia from London. I'm Tim Ecott. For much of the period between 1955 and 2011, the Republic of Sudan was afflicted by civil war. It was, broadly speaking, a war between the northern Sudanese Muslims and the Christian and animist populations of the south. At least 2 million people died in the civil war and many more were displaced. Ethnic unrest in numerous regions of the country deepened divisions. Since 1989, the North has been led by President, formerly General Omar El Bashir, who originally came to power in an army coup d'etat. He was notoriously the first sitting head of state to be indicted by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. President El Bashir concluded a peace deal with the South in July 2011, and it became the new country of South Sudan. Its president is the former rebel leader Salva Kiir. But the borderline between North and South Sudan is still contentious and complicated by the presence of oil. In recent days, fighting has broken out between the North and South around the town of Heglig in South Kordofan state. The South Sudanese army seized Heglig and the North has retaliated, but the president of South Sudan says the North is effectively declaring war on his country. Joining me in the studio is Abdulahi Al Azreg, the Sudanese Ambassador to London. Ambassador, please give me your view on how this fresh tension between the North and the South is developing.
We in Sudan, we made peace with the South, and we have initiated peace negotiations so many times till we reached the point where we signed the peace agreement in 2005. We made a lot of sacrifices. We lost one-fourth of the area of our country and enormous resources. But we said, no, this is far better than fighting and far better than war. Gaining the war gaining the peace is far better than gaining the war. Actually, the SPLA, the party that is ruling the South, is composed of, I'm sorry to say it, but irresponsible politicians. Because of their failure and because of the pressure they are facing inside South Sudan, they have no choice but to create a common enemy.
But with respect, Ambassador, it's not just the south of Sudan with which you're having trouble, is it? There's still problems in Darfur, there's still problems in Blue Nile province. There are many groups hostile to the Khartoum government. Presumably they can't all be in the wrong all of the time.
Khartoum government is an elected government. It has been elected 2 years ago in a democratic and fair election that were observed by observers from outside Sudan, among them in the Carter Center. And they have issued a report in which they say this is a fair election. We have a problem in South Kordofan and in Blue Nile because these people were also supported by the South. In every country...
So all of the problems of Sudan stem from the former rebels in the South. They're still stirring up trouble in your view.
They are doing that exactly, Darfur, there is no war right now in Darfur. And this, I'm not saying this. Even the last leader of the UNIMID, which is the United Nations mission in Darfur that is keeping peace in Darfur, said this. He said, now the war is over. He said this 3 years ago. Now there is no war.
There's no fighting whatsoever. No, there's no trouble. There
is no fighting in Darfur. They are banditry. Because the rebel movement, after failing to gain the support of the people, some of them went to the South. And it is not a secret that the South is harboring them. But inside Darfur, they failed altogether. And the military leader of UNIMID, the United Nations mission in Darfur, said there is no war now. In Blue Nile and South Kordofan, what is going on is a proxy war. It is the war of the South rather than the war of the people of these two areas.
What about this issue of oil, which is clearly still a bone of contention between the South and the North? Access to the oil pipeline, access to the people who want to extract the oil from Sudan. Is that going to be a continuing cause of conflict and potential conflict?
The issue here is a little bit complicated because Sudan owns the refinery, the processing facilities and the pipeline. We are requesting the South to pay the fees for using all these four facilities in addition to transit fees. They refuse to pay anything. From July last year up to December last year, for 5 months we used to send them the bills. They enjoyed not paying anything. You cannot ride the bus without paying the ticket.
Presumably, though, President Kiir is in China now, talking, amongst other things, about oil.
Yeah, they are trying to construct their own pipeline to go through Kenya, which is the observers or the experts say this is impossible under the magnitude of the oil production in the south right now. At least it is not feasible, because they have to pump the oil 2,500 feet above the sea level because of this high plateau in Kenya before they can reach the Indian Ocean on the coast.
But is there some suggestion that your government is jealous or angry about the fact that the South is opening negotiations about oil with China, your largest investor?
No. China is an independent country, and China is our friend, and the Chinese has every right to form relation with any country. And we would like the South to be a prosperous country, by the way, because if your neighbor's house is catching fire, there is no guarantee that your house will not catch fire also. And it has been proven now, whenever there is a chaos in one country, it will spill over in the neighboring country. Because of the fighting between Eritrea and Ethiopia in the past, 1 million refugees came to Sudan, which is a heavy burden even for superpowers, let alone a third world country. Now, we would like very good relation with South Sudan, provided that they stop this proxy war in the Blue Nile and South Kordofan, provided they respect the agreement of non-aggression, provided they recognize that the border between the two countries, between my country and South Sudan, is the border of the 1st of January 1956, the day of our independence. This is what we want. If they stop the proxy war and stop harboring the rebels and stop occupying our territories and respect the non-aggression agreement and respect the border between us, we will keep very good relation with them. Even for economic reasons, we want good relation. The South depends on us on food. The South is landlocked. It has no access to any sea. And at the same time, they don't have infrastructure whatsoever. They don't produce anything. 80% of their food needs come from the north. This is a bonanza. We don't want to lose it.
You mentioned, Ambassador, the number of refugees living in the north who'd come from the south for economic reasons, for military reasons. There are still allegations by opponents of President Al Bashir that if you're not an Arab in the north of Sudan, you have a difficult time.
This is baseless allegation, because you can see me. Salva Kiir cannot say he's more African than me, and Salva Kiir cannot say he's not African than President Al Bashir. But we are Arabs by culture, not race. By race, we are African. We are indigenous people of Africa.
But you are a Muslim, I presume.
Oh yeah, but this is not a problem at all, because the number of Muslims in southern Sudan is greater than the number of Christians. It is not at all a religious matter at all.
But a large component of the conflict in the war was the suggestion that Khartoum wanted to impose Sharia law on the whole country.
We cannot impose Sharia law because Islam wouldn't allow a Muslim to impose his religion on other.
Why did Christians feel so threatened then? Why did they claim that part of their difference with the North was the idea that Sharia would be
Because they are Islamophobic. They are Islamophobic, unfortunately. But they are very good Christians who are fair and honest, who are saying this is not a religious war at all. This war started 1 year before our independence. It started in 1955, and we got our independence in 1956. the war of John Garang, when he took to the bush and announced mutiny against Jafar Nimeri, he did that before Nimeri, our former president, announced the implementation of Islamic laws in Sudan. This has nothing to do with Islam. But to garner support from Christian churches and from world Christians, they are, cheating them and telling them these are the Muslims who are trying to, impose their Islam on us.
President Bashir, of course, has other problems, not least of which the outstanding International Criminal Court warrant for his arrest. How do you respond to their allegations that he embezzled up to $9 billion worth of funds, that he's been implicated in genocide within Sudan and other mass human rights violations?
The British Parliament, the House of Commons, issued a statement that says these allegations were baseless. Because in the beginning, they said in the papers here that he put the money in Lois Bank. Lois Bank itself issued a statement saying, we haven't received a single penny from President Bashir. And the House of Commons, after making necessary investigations, issued another statement saying that these are baseless allegations. You can
the warrant was reissued. I mean, even the ICC looked at the allegations again, and they decided that there was still a case to answer, did they not?
This is a political move. Let me tell you something. Two prominent Americans, both of them were the envoys of America to Sudan, said this genocide is a political move. One of them is Andrew Natios, who was the American envoy to Sudan. He said the allegation of genocide against Sudan is political. And Mr. John Danforth, who was also the envoy to Sudan, the American envoy to Sudan, said these genocide allegations were political and it has been issued to please the Christian ultra-right before the election of 2005.
But the International Criminal Court does not operate on a religious principle. I mean, they've looked at these allegations and they've suspended the warrant and then reissued it. So they obviously feel Mr. Bashir has something to answer for.
I don't agree, with due respect, because the ICC is politically motivated. Because if it's not politically motivated, the fairest person that should be arrested is President Bush, who killed 1 million people in Iraq and who killed hundreds of people in Afghanistan. Nobody issued any warrant against them.
But the fact is the warrant exists and you are ambassador for a country where the president is afraid to leave his own country for fear of arrest.
This is not true. My president is moving freely. He went all the way to China in an official visit.
But there are many countries to which he would not visit.
This is something belong to this country, but he is moving freely. He
wouldn't go to Kenya.
Oh yeah, but so what?
Well, he wouldn't go to Kenya because even though it's a next door African country, he was afraid that he would be arrested.
So what? So what? This would not, affect the way he can do business in his own country.
But it affects Sudan's image and it affects the way that Sudan is able to operate on the international stage. If there are many places and many conferences to which your president cannot go.
You are right. It affects Sudan's image because there is no justice in this world. If there is justice, so many presidents...
So President Bashir has been victimized, you're saying?
He is 100% victimized by some quarters who were politically motivated and who are Islamophobic.
That's a very strong allegation.
It is not allegation, it is supported by the reality on the ground.
Because he is a Muslim, the international community have been picking on him.
I don't think the ICC represents the international community. First, we need to define what do you mean by international community.
Who are the countries around the world who are Sudan's good friends right now?
China, India, Brazil, all the Arab countries, so many African countries, so many Asian countries.
China is obviously a very good friend to Sudan and the country that puts the most money into your country. Is that relationship safe and secure?
I think so, yeah. We respect the Chinese and they respect us and they are investing billions of dollars in Sudan. We want them to invest more. The good thing about China, they don't have string attached relations
Is that true? Do they not? They want your oil, don't they?
But I cannot say they want our oil. This is investment. We are gaining and they are gaining. This is a win-win situation.
No strings attached. You mean they don't require you to respect democracy or human rights?
Very good question. But we are respecting democracy and human rights. Number one, we have 30 parties in Sudan, and we have free press. We have more than 30 independent newspapers. We have independent TVs. We have independent radios.
Can they criticize the president?
They are criticizing the president and they're criticizing the government and ministers every day. They have every right. This is their country. We cannot, monopolize the media, and we cannot confiscate the right to say whatever they think is right. Yeah. As for human rights, we don't have political prisoners. Where can you find this in the world? But because they created a very bad image for us, this is why they think there is no human rights respect in Sudan. It is stemming partly from the Islamophobia.
You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London. I'm Tim Ecott, and I'm in conversation with the Sudanese Ambassador to London, Abdulahi Al Azreg. What about Russia? Is Russia one of your friends?
They are our friends. We are proud of them.
Is there Russian investment in Sudan?
There are some Russian investments, but not as big as the Chinese or some Arab countries.
Are you actively seeking a stronger economic or political relationship with Russia right now?
Of course we do.
What would you like Russia to do for Sudan?
We want more investment from Russia in Sudan, and we will want more political involvement in Russia in Sudan in terms of their presence in the international organizations, because they can influence the decision of international organizations and make them balanced.
What about your relationship with the United States?
It is strained.
President Obama is one of those who's called for President Bashir to be arrested.
Up to him. He should call also for Georgiush next door to him to be arrested. And so many other criminals, not the ones who were accused on baseless allegations and political motivations.
So, as ambassador, you absolutely reject all of these accusations that are leveled against President Bashir, and you think he's doing a good job?
I think so. He is loved by his people. In the last election, which is fair election and honest election, he has got 65% of the people vote in that free election.
Would anyone dare to stand against him?
He was contested in that election.
How do you see this situation with the South developing? It seems like the tensions are almost as bad now as they were 5 years ago.
It is, unfortunately, it is bad, because the leadership in the South, they don't have a choice but to create a common enemy. Unfortunately, they see us...
Why do they need an enemy? They had you as their enemy for 20 years. Why would it be in their
interest?
interest?
Because they failed internally to do anything. They failed to develop their country. They failed to make any rehabilitation. They have embezzled the money, and they are embattled internally in the South. Yesterday, Al Jazeera English broadcasted a very interesting program talking about the corruption and the tribal conflicts inside the South, and talking about the failure of the government to do anything. Because they fail to do anything, they have to export their problems to the North.
What about these suggestions that the South might be welcoming United States to establish a military base in their country?
I cannot prevent the South, which is an independent country, okay? Metaphorically independent country, to take the decision they like.
You would be happy with that situation?
Would not be happy, because nobody would like these superpowers to be next door. We are fearing their intervention in our internal affairs.
What do you fear that having an American base so close to you would result in?
We are afraid because they have intervened in so many countries and created chaos in so many countries. Look at Iraq. Their intervention in Iraq, did not bring democracy or human rights respect or anything positive.
But the United States has not interfered in Sudan's affairs, has it?
It is interfering.
Right now?
I think so.
What would America like to happen in the North or the South?
America imposed unilateral sanctions against Sudan, and they put us in the list of terrorist countries, although their envoy to Sudan said Sudan is cooperating with the international community in fighting terrorism 100%. They told us 3 times that will lift us from that list of terrorists. They did not. They did not honor their promises.
Are there any elements within Sudan today, do you think, who are sympathetic to Al-Qaeda?
Not to my knowledge. But who knows? They in Britain, they found some people who, who are sympathetic to Al-Qaeda.
Do you think it's something that America fears might be happening in South
America
Sudan?
is not fearing any terrorism from Sudan. And I have told you, Mr. Gresham, testimony in the Congress that Sudan is terrorist-free. He said we are cooperating 100% positively.
Speaking positively, what is the solution? What is the immediate solution that might stop this conflict escalating between yourselves and South Sudan?
Very simple. Non-intervention in Sudan, no support for the rebel movements who cross the border, okay? And they have to recognize the border line between our 2 countries, which is the border of the 1st of January 1956.
Why is this placing of the border still a bone of contention when you reached a peace deal, and yet you're still harping back to the borderline that was drawn at the time of colonialism? Why is that not been resolved?
This was actually a mistake, but it is not our mistake. It was the South's mistake.
But you signed the peace agreement. It's presumably at least a mistake on both your parts.
According to the peace agreement, the border between the 2 sides is the border of the 1st of January 56. When we were implementing the peace agreement, we were supposed to redemarcate the border. They were not keen to redemarcate the border, and they were accusing us of not honoring the referendum. They say, if you did not make the referendum on time, we will go to war again.
The United Nations and even the Chinese premier are urging both sides to sit down at the negotiating table and sort this present unrest and conflict out before it returns your countries to warfare. Is that going to happen?
Definitely we don't want war. War is not in our benefit at all. We were very keen to make peace.
How does that happen? Who makes the first phone call? Is President Bashir going to ring the South and say, let's talk?
Not now. Definitely not now, because they are harboring the rebels in their country and they are sending them across the border. They are still claiming Heglig is part of the South, although it hasn't been a contested area at all. During the negotiation, after the signing of the peace agreement, during the transitional period, and after the independence of
the South. Whatever the rights and wrongs of the situation, people are dying there now. How is that going to be stopped?
This is really sad. This is really sad. Very simple. Non-intervention of internal affairs, stopping harboring the rebels, respecting the agreements, and respecting the border.
So it's the South who must stop interfering, and it's the South who must withdraw.
Yes, of course. They are occupying now 2 areas in northern Sudan. Our people will not accept if we go to negotiation while they are occupying our territory. It's impossible. People will not accept this.
Is being ambassador for Sudan a difficult job?
It is.
Why?
It is challenging. It is very much challenging. Number one, we are faced by a negative media. And this created a very bad image for my country.
Negative media or media who asks difficult questions?
No, negative media. Unfair media, actually. And
tell me how you're treated unfairly.
Oh, in so many aspects. Sometimes they are talking about slavery in Sudan. See, in 21st century.
And is there no slavery in Sudan?
Of course, there is no slavery in Sudan. No.
So why do people keep asking you about it? Why do people keep claiming that there is?
Why people, were asking about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? It was a big lie. And everybody believed it.
So
because the media were claiming
that when people claim there is modern-day slavery in Sudan, they're lying.
They are totally lying. I'm not saying this. Reasonable people are saying this. Reasonable people are saying this. In 60 Minutes, the famous American TV program, that rather brought 2 people. Okay, one of them is a religious man, a clergyman from Italy, who were working in 20 years in South Sudan. He said these are staged, move, and this is baseless allegations, and it has no, base at all. Another is a journalist who used to work with an American organization called Redemption. The same man who said the same thing. They made a movie, okay? They staged a movie, actually. These are baseless allegations.
Well, how else does the media treat you unfairly? What other accusations do they make that you feel are unjustified?
For example, we have democracy in Sudan. Nobody is saying that we have democracy. Nobody is saying that we have 30 independent parties. Nobody is saying that we have more than 30 independent newspapers. Nobody is saying that we have independent radios and TV stations. Nobody is saying these things. Our president is not a dictator, and he cannot be a dictator.
But he is a president who's not free to travel the world.
He is free to travel to the fair people.
And many of the countries that the world calls democratic are not places that will welcome President Bashir right now.
What do you mean by democracy? You have to define democracy first.
Well, countries like the United States, like the United Kingdom, like most of Western Europe, your president is not welcome there. Or
Sudan is democratic, but nobody is saying Sudan is democratic. We need to define democracy first. Yeah, they are double standards in today's world.
Isn't one sign of a democracy in a free country that your head of state could travel to other democratic countries and not fear being arrested?
He traveled to so many fair countries and he hasn't been arrested. He travels to all Arab countries and most of them are democratic. And he travels all the way to China, and they have all sorts of democracy. Okay, so democracy doesn't mean you have to be 100%. It has to be 100% Western. The real democracy is the homegrown democracy. There is no one solution to the political problems of the world, and there is no one system for democracy.
Tell me something positive that's happening apart from democracy inside Sudan right now. Tell me something positive about development and about the people and how their lives are changed since the war stopped.
Oh, yeah. Since the war stopped in 2005, we attained a very high rate of growth. For almost 10 years, our rate of growth is 10%, and you can Google what I'm telling you. We used to have very limited number of universities. There were only 4. Now we have almost 40 universities. We have built tens of hospitals, new ones and modern ones. We have built thousands of kilometers of paved asphalted roads. We have built one big dam in the north, okay, that produces 1,200 megawatt of electricity, and we have electrified the majority of the country. So many positive things took place after the war stopped.
So life in Sudan is good.
Life in Sudan is progressing, and we are hopeful. We want the war to stop so that we pursue and continue our progress.
Ambassador Abdulahi Al Azreg, thank you for joining me to discuss the issues affecting Sudan at the moment. From me, Tim Ecott, goodbye.